I stood there for a moment, unsure whether to speak or step back into the room I'd come from. The Arizona sun wasn't even up yet, but a soft orange glow pressed through the cabin windows, casting warm lines across the floorboards. She kept cooking like nothing about this situation was strange, like wearing a stranger's shirt in a stranger's cabin was the most natural thing in the world. The desert storm had forced us together last night, two people who never should have crossed paths. Yet now, in the quiet morning haze, it felt like we were the only two people left in the entire state. She turned off the stove and placed two plates on the small wooden table near the window. Even in silence, I could feel her thoughts racing. Her fingers trembled slightly when she sat down, though she tried to hide it by tucking her hair behind her ear. I sat across from her, the smell of bacon filling the cabin, but neither of us touched our food. She kept her eyes lowered, staring at the plate as if trying to gather courage. When she finally looked up, there was a fear in her expression I didn't understand, but couldn't ignore. I wasn't planning to end up here, she said quietly, as though confessing something. Last night wasn't supposed to happen. Any of it. Her voice was soft, but every word carried weight. She wasn't talking about the storm. She wasn't talking about the broken car. Whatever she was running from had followed her long before Arizona's desert winds pushed her toward my cabin. I leaned forward slightly, giving her space but also letting her know she wasn't alone. If you need help, I said gently, you can tell me. You're safe here. The way her shoulders relaxed told me she hadn't heard those words in a long time. She took a deep breath and finally began to speak. She told me she had left California 3 days ago. She had driven all night, stopped only for gas and quick meals. Her voice trembled when she spoke about someone who wouldn't leave her alone, someone who had found her in every city she tried to disappear into. She didn't say his name, and I didn't ask. When the storm hit last night, she whispered, I felt like the desert was trying to swallow me. I thought I wouldn't make it. Then your truck came out of nowhere like a lifeline. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She looked too tired to cry. I didn't want to overwhelm her with questions. Instead, I listened. The desert wind brushed against the window outside, soft and steady now that the storm had passed. You're safe here, I repeated, and this time she closed her eyes like she was letting the words settle into her bones. I don't want to go back yet, she said again, her voice barely more than a breath. I nodded slowly. You don't have to. She looked at me with surprise, then relief. Something in her gaze shifted, fear turning into trust. Piece by fragile piece. We finally began eating, though neither of us tasted much of the food. The morning light grew brighter, warming the room and softening the tension that had wrapped around her since sunrise. Despite everything, the moment felt strangely peaceful. Two people who had been strangers 12 hours ago now sat together at the same small table, both caught in the quiet after a storm, one outside, and one inside her. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know what she was truly running from. But one thing was clear, she wasn't ready to face the world again, and for now, this cabin was her only safe place. The morning light had barely touched the snowy pines when the knocking shattered the calm. For a second, I didn't move. I just stared at the door, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. Toma stood behind me, small and trembling, clutching the blanket I had wrapped around him. His eyes, wide and frightened, followed every movement I made. When I finally opened the door, the icy wind hit my face, and so did the sight of the three women. Their cheeks were red from the cold, their breaths uneven, their shawls weighed down by snow. One looked like she hadn't slept in days. They didn't step inside immediately, they stood frozen for a moment, staring past me into the cabin as if terrified to hope. The tallest one clutched a small beaded pouch to her chest, her fingers shaking. The woman in the middle spoke, her voice cracking under exhaustion. Please, we're looking for a boy. He disappeared 4 days ago during the storm. Before I could even answer, Toma stepped forward from behind me, and the sound that left those women was something I had never heard, half cry, half prayer. The youngest woman, maybe his sister, covered her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. I stepped aside to let them in, and the warmth of the cabin seemed to swallow them instantly. Toma's aunt rushed to him, dropping to her knees and pulling him into her arms. She didn't say a word. She just held him, rocking him back and forth like she was afraid he might disappear if she let go. The eldest woman touched his face gently, whispering something in Apache, her voice trembling with gratitude and disbelief. I stood quietly, giving them space. Watching their reunion felt like witnessing something sacred, raw, human, and painfully beautiful. After 4 days of fear, when Toma was finally settled beside the fire with his family surrounding him, the middle woman, who introduced herself as Naya, turned to me with red eyes. She explained that they had searched every ridge, every frozen creek, calling his name until their voices gave out. They thought the storm had taken him. They thought they would never find him. She kept repeating, "Thank you, you saved him," as though the words weren't enough but all she had. I told her the truth, I simply did what anyone should do. But the way she shook her head told me she didn't believe that for a second. As they warmed up, they shared bits of their journey, how their horses had gotten spooked during the storm, how Toma had slipped down a slope in the chaos. They had searched the mountain for hours before the blizzard forced them to take shelter miles away. Every detail made my chest tighten. Toma sat quietly between them, his tiny hands gripping their sleeves like he feared another gust of wind might rip him away again. When I handed him a bowl of warm soup, he looked up at me with those big dark eyes, and for the first time since I found him, he smiled, a small, tired, grateful smile. Eventually, Naya stood and faced me with a seriousness that silenced the cabin. "Our people don't forget kindness," she said. "You didn't just save a child, you brought him back to us." Her words settled heavily in the room, warm and sincere. The storm outside had calmed, but inside, something had shifted. The weight of 4 days of fear lifted from the women's faces, replaced by relief. Toma curled against his aunt's side, already drifting into safer sleep. And as the fire crackled softly, I realized that what began as a rescue had turned into something far deeper, something that connected all of us in that small mountain cabin, forever.